In the transition from Matthew chapter 4 to chapter 5, we move from the account of Jesus' temptation and the beginning of his public ministry to the Sermon on the Mount, one of the most significant teachings of Jesus. This sermon outlines the ethical and spiritual ethos of the kingdom of heaven, challenging traditional understandings of righteousness. Verses 1 through 2 introduces the setting of this profound sermon. Jesus, seeing the multitudes, ascends a mountain and begins to teach his disciples. This ascent is reminiscent of Moses receiving the law on Mount Sinai, but here Jesus expounds the law's deeper spiritual significance. The Beatitudes, covered in verses 3 through 12, present the values of the kingdom. They describe a blessedness not based on external circumstances, but on one's relationship with God. The poor in spirit, those who mourn, the meek, and others mentioned are blessed not because of their conditions, but because their state leads them to rely on God. Verses 13 through 16 shift to the metaphor of salt and light. Believers are to influence the world by preserving godly standards and illuminating truth. Just as salt preserves and light dispels darkness, Christians are to uphold righteousness and provide moral and spiritual guidance in a corrupt and dark world. In verses 17 through 20, Jesus clarifies his relationship to the law and the prophets, not to abolish, but to fulfill them. This fulfillment is not merely in adherence to the law, but in revealing its full meaning and bringing it to completion through his life, death, and resurrection. Verses 21 through 26 deal with anger and reconciliation. Jesus intensifies the command against murder, teaching that unrighteous anger and insult are also liable to judgment. This teaching calls for examining one's heart and prioritizing reconciliation, emphasizing internal righteousness over external compliance. In verses 27 through 30, Jesus addresses adultery, extending the command to include lustful intent. This again highlights the importance of internal purity over mere external obedience. It also shows the severity of sin, calling for radical measures to avoid it. Verses 31 through 32 speak on divorce. Jesus teaches that divorce, except on grounds of sexual immorality, leads to adultery. This underscores the sanctity of marriage and the gravity of divorce, which was treated casually in that culture. Oaths are addressed in verses 33 through 37. Jesus instructs to not swear oaths, but let one's communication be simply yes or no. This teaching reinforces the importance of integrity and honesty, standing in stark contrast to the practices of evasive and deceptive speech. Verses 38 through 42 address the principle of retaliation. Jesus presents a higher standard. Do not resist an evil person, but turn the other cheek. This challenges the common understanding of justice, calling for a response of non-retaliation and active love. In verses 43 through 48, Jesus teaches about love for enemies, overturning the love your neighbor and hate your enemy concept. Believers are to love their enemies and pray for those who persecute them, reflecting God's perfect love and mercy. The application of these teachings is profound. They call for a radical transformation of heart and mind, aligning with God's standards of righteousness. They challenge superficial religious practices, emphasizing authentic living that reflects God's character. These teachings confront societal norms, encouraging believers to live out the countercultural values of the kingdom of heaven. The Sermon on the Mount calls for a deep self-examination and a commitment to live in accordance with the high standards of moral and spiritual integrity set by Jesus. It is a call to true discipleship, living out the principles of the kingdom in every aspect of life, thereby being a true light to the world. Thank you all for tuning in and being a part of our community here at Gospel Illuminations. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the thumbs up button to show your support. Please share your thoughts, feel free to leave a comment below. And don't forget to subscribe to Gospel Illuminations for more inspiring and uplifting content. Your support means the world and helps this channel grow. Thank you again, and stay blessed.